a blessed Sunday to us. Being part of a group of those who studied scriptures in Rome, and by the way, we can also be a bit, proud, not in the negative sense, that we have finally completed translating from the Greek text the New Testament. During the process of translations, there are so many beautiful, what we call expressions that may somehow be fitting, especially in the readings. I recall when we had the reading about Martha and Mary, nung nindot kayo ang sinibuan no atong miingon si Jesus kang Martha nga, Martha, 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 no? Nindot kayo sa sibuan nung ingon nga, ay kanimo Martha, no? That's one very beautiful, sense nga kung kita magbasa as Cebuanos, we really feel, the beautiful message there. Now, today's gospel reading is also one particular example. When in the parable that Jesus told, God said to the rich man, ningon ang Ginoo, you fool. So, rindot kayo na sa Binisaya o gamito nato ang local color yun nga, ay buang. Uy, buang. No? So, these are beautiful aspects, but this is just one thing. But today's gospel reading is, I remember every 3 years, because this gospel actually recurs, no? Magbalik-balik man siya. I always use an almost constant perspective, especially in what Jesus said, to take care that we have to guard against all greed. Now, what does the expression all greed? Dili di ay usara ka buok greed. Daghan di ay ng porma, no? I think even in looking into our language, I don't know if of course you understand what hakog is, what laog is, what ulit is. Unsa pa? Hikawan. Unsa pa'y daghan? Napay unom ni kabuok nga mga pulo nga I don't know, di na nato kayo magamit ang uban niini. No? Hakog, laog, hikawan, ulit, sirok, dalo. No? So, these are actually many beautiful expressions of what Jesus said in today's gospel as greed. Today's second reading also, St. Paul to the Colossians in his letter mentions about idolatry as a form of greed. But why are we so focused on this? Now, when Jesus said all forms of greed, we have to be very aware of this. For example, when a person is greedy for self-importance, what is its technical term? It is pride, egoism. Now, what is this greed that has something to do with owning all emotions? Nga dali ra kayo mo react, no? Walay consideration. That is anger, no? Then what is this form of greed which has something to do with the sensual things? That is called lust. Okay? And what is this greed that is actually connected to, feeling uneasy when somebody is better or far better than yourself? What kind of greed is that? It's called envy. No? And then, what do you call in English a greed in terms of food? Gluttony. Okay? And then, there is also a greed for material things. In English, we call it avarice. And finally, there is a form of greed that has something to do with sige ragpahuway, the greed for rest, and that is called sloth. And without knowing it, I have already enumerated with you the so-called 7 capital sins, beginning with pride, anger, lust, envy, gluttony, avarice, and sloth. Now, there is actually an acronym to that, palegas. Para dili malimta nato, palegas. And these are the things that Jesus actually is trying to point to us through our gospel reading today. It is a huge area nga daghan kayo nga mga aspects or dimensions, but we have to be very careful at all times. And what is the cure of all these forms of greed? Of course, we say love, but love is so abstract. But the basic starting point is the virtue of humility. The ability to accept things that are beyond ourselves, and the ability also to express what we can do ourselves, but not going beyond the limits. Because, as we say, in wisdom, we can learn that there is always a limit to each and every one of us, or to everything that we want to do. Our responsorial psalm today says something about, teach us, O Lord, to number our days aright, so that we will learn and we will gain wisdom. And part of that is to accept that there are always limits in the things that we do, in the things that we want, in the things that we like, and in everything that we own, even our own lives. But as we are still continuing to struggle and live and enjoy the plenty and the wondrous blessings that God has given us, let us not also forget, at the end of the day, to thank Him, to count our days aright by being generous, by trying to be good, and at the same time, and most of all, to be copiously thankful. No, kaya pagka mapasalamaton nga wa'joy kutat, pagka masalamaton nga wa'joy hunong, because that is what we are called to respond to God's graces. And we now put this in the very context of where and what we are doing now, the Eucharist itself. It is an act of thanksgiving for the many different things and graces that God has given us as His children. Amen.